Hey gang, it's KR King of D&D Homebrew, and today I'm going to give you 6 ways to make sure that your game is fair to your players, and then I'm going to give you a bonus tip on how to use unfairness to actually make your game funner and your players more invested. And our concept of fairness is one of our most primal emotions. Researchers call this inequity aversion. And what that means is when we see that others have things that we don't have and we've put in the same effort, we get extremely resentful, extremely angry. They've done research with monkeys where they'll have them in a cage, and if they give them a stone, they'll give them either a celery or then a grape, right? So the two, they're watching this and they see this, and then the other monkey gets a grape, and the next one gives the stone and gets celery, which they don't like as much, and it literally throws it at the researcher. It's so angry, right? And they see this in things like crows and other, creatures with some sentience. The idea here is that it's an evolutionary thing in terms of promoting cooperation. Those that that cheat the system or act unfairly hurt the overall tribe or group. And there's research that says people will do things, take risks to right a wrong in terms of unfairness, even over that of greed or trying to win some award or something. Unfairness motivates us more than almost any other situation that we find. And in terms of games, think about sports where you have, if you're playing a game and the refs are favoring one team, it's unfair. That's why people always point to the refs, especially losing teams, and say we got screwed. So in terms of the 6 tips, I've divided them into metagaming concepts and in-gaming concepts, 3 and 3. Metagaming is, outside as you're playing the game, ways of playing the game in general. So the first one I'm going to talk about is when you have meta currency like inspiration. Now, it says in the book you reward inspiration in D&D, and there's other systems that have this as well, or luck points or things like that. When the players do something really good, or maybe it's a selfless act, but maybe it's just a really smart play. But here's what I'm going to say. If you want to use this kind of meta currency, luck or inspiration or whatever your system has, just hand out the same number of points to players at the beginning of each session. And I would not reward individual players, because what happens is people get left out and they are resentful. And it turns into, oh, that player made me laugh, or oh, that player's much better. Or what's worse is if you give out pity inspiration points where it's clear you're just doing it because player Y never gets any inspiration and player X gets it all the time or something like that. No one wants to be, charity handouts, right? They want to do it for their actual activities. I would just avoid the whole inspiration mechanic in terms of rewarding players. You can, if the group does an incredible, the incredible encounter, they all did this stuff, it's possible to hand out multiple inspiration points, or the whole group getting an inspiration point or luck point or whatever your system says. And then those that haven't used theirs yet would then have 2. You don't want to say, oh, you didn't use it, you lost that one, right? Because that's unfair. I didn't get a chance to use it. I'm waiting to use it. The next one is listening. This is paying attention to all the players at your table. You often have a player that dominates, a player that's constantly thinking of things to do, that's kind of running the show. There's a player that's keeping notes. There's a player that's just looking at their character sheet, or there's a player that just gets involved either in role-playing or combat or whatever. But they'll say things. And there is a tremendous fairness issue if I'm saying something to the leader or the GM and they're not listening to me, I'm not being heard, and I will fixate on that and start to lose my attention of what's happening in the game. Because why am I not being listened to? And then someone else comes up with the same idea, and you're like, oh, hey, that was really great. Here's an inspiration point. Double unfair. Make sure you're listening and you're watching and you're seeing, and make sure that if someone is out of it or doesn't seem is unhappy about something, look at their expressions, their body language. Because players they'll show signs that they're feeling like something is unfair, something is not right. Here's another one, listening. If you do a thing, so I did a thing where I had a DC for it was a paralyze effect, high level monster, and the players were getting paralyzed and they weren't involved in the battle. So they got paralyzed the first round. They could not make every round of this battle. They couldn't make the save. And they later said, I understand you're trying to make monsters and we're a higher level now, but it's not very fun to not be involved in the battle. And I said, okay, you're right. that it's not necessarily unfair in terms of this is what the monster does, except when you give it a high DC like that, it was like I think it was a 15. They didn't like that. And part of it is they're just rolling badly. So again, this was a situation, I'm bringing up a real life thing. Part of me was like, well, wasn't that tough? It was like a 20 or something, right? You're high level. But, in terms of some of these players just didn't have the ability to make that save. And they felt, it was unfair. So listening to your players, both in terms of are they paying attention to the game, but do they feel like something's wrong? A player gets up and leaves or does something. And again, listening to your players, if someone else is doing something that bugs them and they're getting up and leave, they feel like, again, this person dominates all the time. This person, I have something to say too. And, this person goes in and they want to role play all the time and do all this stuff. And we're all sitting here watching, right? My time, I've got 3 hours to play, and it's not fair if that one player is taking up all the game time. So you want to listen to the players, and if it looks like something's going on, ask them, what's up? What's going on here? Because if they feel heard in whatever way, in terms of the metagame aspect, they will not, at least if you say, this is my decision and this is why I've done it. Or like I did, okay, you know what? I'm not going to do this paralyzed thing. I'm going to do something else. A daze or something. But, the point is I listened to them. They said the DC was too high. I'm going to adjust it. And another thing that will go a long way in terms of fairness is to praise your players when they do something right. And it can be as subtle as just, oh, nice job. Or, that was smart. It's got to be real praise. Can't be fake. Again, like inspiration. You don't give out pity inspiration. Don't give out pity praise. Because they'll see right through that. But if somebody does something, say, that was smart. Good job. Hey, because of your, intimidation check, the AC was just enough for the next player to hit. Something like that. And I'll do it sort of subtly, like, oh, it's because of that darn intimidation, right? And the player that does that hears it, and they feel that praise makes other elements not as bad because they're feeling heard. They feel like everyone is being heard. They feel like they're contributing, that there is a fairness to this, that their contribution isn't being discounted. Because it's not fair to the person that swings the sword to get all, oh, how did you kill the creature? Oh, I struck it through the head. And that person's sitting there thinking, well, you wouldn't have hit it if I hadn't intimidated it. Or I hadn't used a slow spell. Or whatever, right? And I don't get any recognition. And then they feel like it's not fair that these players are getting recognition. And a little bit of praise, honest praise, goes a long way. It goes a long way to your players feeling like this world is fair. Because everything else, even if it's a fun game, even if they love the system, even if they love the players they're playing with, if the game is unfair, they're not going to want to play. We don't want to play games that are unfair because that's not what games are about. We want to just have, this is the setup, these are how the system works, and it goes according to how it works with nobody tipping the scales. So the next three categories are in-game fairness things that, affect the player characters as they're interacting with your world. So the first one is that players should be rewarded for their actions, such that if the players save the town, from the Orcan invaders or whatever, they are rewarded either by the town, by the Baron of someplace, even if it's just thank you, or even if it's just some token from the townspeople. They gather together their 12 copper pieces or something. That might be a little much, because oftentimes if you do that, if they say, here's all we have, and the little kids are breaking their piggy banks, the players will just give it back. But they feel like they've been rewarded. And that is satisfying. If you're doing stuff and risking life and limb, and then people just go on with what their business is as though you never did it, you feel like that's a little unfair. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I risking this for these people when they're totally ungrateful? And then you get to the higher level NPCs and whatnot who send the player on missions. And, they go and they do some great thing. And it's not necessarily a quest that they're forced to do, but they just do it, come back, and the person either doesn't come through with a reward they promised or puts a caveat on it, or you have some event that occurs. They come back and that NPC was killed and their place was taken over. And the person says, I don't know who you are. They're going to feel screwed. They're going to feel like that's a little unfair. How come we weren't involved? How come we weren't around when this person moved in on this NPC? It happened when we're not here. And now our reward that we were supposed to get, right? If the players, make an interesting proposition to an NPC, they will come through. They will say, okay, that's a good idea. It's sort of like the praise thing. The NPCs will react to these things as well, right? This is part of the reward. there's been some problem or there's some ongoing issue and the players go to the leaders of some community and they say, hey, we have an idea, we want to do X. Say yes. Say that's a great idea. Say, they're grateful to you and they set something up and they give you some resources to help this happen. Unless it's just a crazy idea, and then you can have the NPC say, well, it's a crazy idea because of X, Y, and Z, but you're saying, yes, but, right? Yes, we're interested in you helping us, but this is what we want you to do. This is the setup. But you're not just like going, they don't even want to talk to you. Or they say, what the hell are you asking me this? Because I've run in worlds where that happens, where the NPCs are just, they're not cooperative. Everything has to be pulled out of them. It's one thing if it's the great unspoken secret of a world or something that no one must speak of, but just in terms of, hey, we saw this land that's being unused, we were thinking of investing in it. No, I'm not doing that. That's my land. And, it's like, really? Why not? And another one is that the NPCs and sentient monsters don't just see through the plans of the players, unless there's some kind of mega genius or mega, smart something like that, where you use that as a mechanic. When the players go and they come up with a really good idea, don't adjust things that they would have figured that out, or, on the fly. This is the thing about don't just give them the spells they need. People do this. They have monsters and they go, I'll just figure out the spells when we're running. That's no good. Players can't do that. It's not fair, right? Don't just give them this, however many hit points, and then I'll adjust that as they go along. Set up the hit points. If you've made an unfair encounter and the players are getting killed, or you thought it was fair and then the rolls went away, you can adjust the reactions to the players losing. They can always run away, and maybe there's a chance they can rescue whoever is left there behind or not. But if you start fudging things, if you start making it clear that the players, not only will they take dumb risks, but the game's not real. It's not fair. Even if you say, well, I'm being unfair to the or the monsters in my world. Well, no. Again, in order for a game to be worthwhile, it has to, you just lay out how it's set up. This is the encounter, or this is the NPCs. This is our reaction. Here we go. And it's fair. And this leads into my third encounter, which says fair encounters do not mean balanced encounters, right? You can have an encounter that's very deadly. What you don't want to do is surprise the players out of the blue. They're walking through farmland, and a red dragon flies up and attacks them. That's an unfair encounter, unless they're super high level. Let's say they're third level. They're all just dead. What's that about, right? Unless they did something to that red dragon. They snuck in, they stole its favorite item, and they're walking down, and the dragon has tracked them and whatever, flies up on them, somehow surprises them, because if they see it, they're going to run or whatever, and blast them. But you can have, knowing that you're going to go get that dragon's pendant, you have a secret map and you're going to go in there and do whatever. But if that dragon wakes up or, is ready for you, you could all be dead. Totally deadly encounter. That's not unfair because the players know the risks. If you're going to take on the big boss and, you're fifth level or, whatever, third, I don't know, whatever, you're not a level that you really should be able to take this big boss on. That's not an unfair encounter. That's just you taking a huge risk. But the thing is, when you have, and again, you go into an area, it's really deadly. You go into this cave complex, super deadly. The players know it and they take that risk. But not just they're wandering along and this deadly encounter occurs and they're all dead or people are running off and, party members are dead, because that's unfair. It's not just unbalanced, it's an unfair setup. So you want to be thinking about when you're creating your world, when you're creating encounters and whatnot. Yes, people say, well, they have the CRs, things in, 5e, and they have the same sort of thing in Pathfinder. They have other things, other editions where you look and, and we used to have, we'd roll those in the old days, 1 to 6 specters or whatever it was. Maybe it's 1 to 4, I don't know. But if you get 4 or 6 specters, you could be in trouble with that level drain. But again, is that an unfair encounter? You go into the Temple of the Spectre Lords, you could run into 6 specters, right? So, but just walking down the street in a kind of seedy town and 6 specters show up and start blasting you. What is this? That's unfair, right? Again, you may run your world and say, I've told the players at any moment you could run into 6 specters in my world in a little hamlet somewhere. Okay, I guess I'll be ready for that, right? You are going to be on edge in that kind of world. So it's technically not unfair, but the setup is a little, who would go outside? who would live in a world in which there are these specters just appear? I think I'd move to another town. All right, so now I'm going to talk about using unfairness to make your game funner and make your players more invested in your world. And I'll give an example. I had these bandits, and I've talked about this before, but I'll mention it again. And people say to me, you did this to provoke the players. And I thought I was doing it for flavor. Maybe subconsciously I was doing it to provoke the players with the unfairness gene, right? Because these bandits had taken over this rest stop, Dagger's Rest, and the players came through. And the players were just going to ignore these bandits. They knew these guys were taking on the town. They didn't have time for this. And they had this little girl that was serving water to people. And as she was crossing the street, one of the bandits stuck his leg out and tripped her. Ah, they all laughed. Better get some new shoes, and this kind of thing. Well, the players just attacked because that is unbelievably unfair and cruel to trip someone who can't defend themselves, a child. And they just killed the bandits. And there was this big issue with they got arrested and they had this tribunal because technically it's not tripping a little girl is not a capital crime and that kind of thing. But the point is that unfairness will motivate players almost like nothing else. Yes, there are players that want to rise up in levels. Yes, they want to get treasure, magic. But if they want to right a wrong, if they see a really blatant unfairness, this town is being harassed by something, or again, you'll have players that go, "What's in it for me?" But there are players, if you really play up the unfairness, so they're being exploited by some, NPC who's cruel and vicious, and he comes around once in a while and takes someone who's the guy in Game of Thrones that hunts people down with his dogs, it's like that kind of stuff. Oh, the players will react to that. It isn't just cruelty. It's the unfairness of it. That some person who's their probably noble birth, just born into it, is using their position to inflict cruel pain on people, to take away almost all their food and just leave them scraps after they're working all year to raise these crops. That's unfair. And that will motivate your players. So think about ways that there's all sorts of relationships that are unfair, right? That situations that, people being picked upon is a classic one, but there are others. I had a thing where there was an election for a new town council that the players had worked on. And when they came to counting the votes, the old guard won mysteriously. They rigged the election. And the players were furious and they said, this is not going to stand, right? They weren't powerful enough yet to take on this ruling class's, guards and a wizard on their side. But they were just like, we are going to get that guy. Because we engineered this election that people were totally excited. They wanted a new fair council and they rigged the election. Right? Anything that's tipping the scales unfairly, just like in the game, the mechanics of the game, the players' characters will react to beyond almost anything. It's evolutionary. So think about ways to create these unfairness situations, and you're just laying it out like, there it is. That's the way the world is. I mean, in a medieval fantasy, typical RPG world, there's no Supreme Court that makes decisions. There's a king that runs the place like a dictator, right? You do have councils and things. You're having this sort of proto-democracy, coming up with merchants having some power. But ultimately, in a lot of these places, if the king just says off with their head, it's off with their head. Well, if that's unfair, if you've set it up such a way, this king, they see him or a queen or whoever do this, they're going to react to that because it's not fair. They're going to say that person has to be replaced. And this is a powerful, powerful tool because you know what? The world isn't fair. When I was a kid, I'd say to my dad, and he said, Care, if I had a little fairness wand, I'd wave it and everything would be fair, but it's not. The world's not fair. And it bugs us. And when we're in a D&D world, we have a chance to right those wrongs. The heroism of a neutral sort of Conan figure or Kane from that, where they go around and they just decide what to do or not to do, but they're really not that worried about who's suffering or who's not. It's okay, it can be fun, but it's not as satisfying as even if they're a, neutral mercenary type character, but who's constantly on the sly sort of righting these wrongs. And the townspeople or whoever realize it, but then they just move on to the next town, that kind of thing. That's really satisfying to your players. It's the inverse of the unfairness gene they feel in terms of being screwed over by it, right? The opposite, when they've righted a wrong like that and burned somebody that was being unfair, that was cheating, is incredibly satisfying. And it'll make your players invested in the various, machinations of the NPCs or what the monsters are up to, or anything else in your world. If they're righting a wrong, if they're righting an unfairness, they will really be invested. So hopefully that's helpful to you. If you like what you've seen on my channel, please subscribe. Always looking for more. Leave some comments. I'd love to hear about, how you handle fairness, both the meta sort of game fairness issues. There's probably a lot more that I hadn't thought of, but also in-game in terms of player characters. Whatever you do, my friends, keep playing an RPG game, whichever one you choose. Tell somebody else about it.